Okay, everyone, welcome back. This is part 5 of the special report of the Jussie Smollett case. Okay, so not yesterday, but the last part 4, we went through. These are the facts that I pulled out that I think are worth remembering. The OSP, Office of Special Prosecutor, did not develop evidence that would support any criminal charges against State's Attorney Fox or any individual working at the CCSAO. And that CCSAO is the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. That's Kim Fox is the head of over there. So they didn't find any evidence of criminal activity. The OSP did not develop evidence of improper influence by any outside third parties in the decision making by the CCSAO in the initial Smollett case. And these are the 3 people that was really people were talking about that were questionable. And so they're saying there was no improper influence by these 3 people that Kim Fox was in communication with. And that's Cheryl Lynn Ifill, President and Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund, Inc., Christina M. Tina Chen, CEO of Time's Up Now, formerly Michelle Obama's chief of staff, and Janae Smollett, Mr. Smollett's sister. And then the OSP did conclude that there were media reports that contained unauthorized leaks of police investigative information by CPD personnel. The OSP did not develop evidence that would support any criminal charges against any individual working at the CPD or the Chicago Police Department. Okay, let's get into it. We're almost done with this. So conclusion 1, the OSP did conclude that the majority of CPD media communications during CPD's Smollett investigation were authorized communications in accordance with CPD's written policies. So under CPD General Order G09-02, it is the policy of the Chicago Police Department to cooperate impartially with the news media in providing information on crime and police-related matters while simultaneously conforming to the protections guaranteed to the individuals under the U.S. Constitution. Under the same order, certain authorized individuals are permitted to respond to news media inquiries, provided individuals' constitutional rights are safeguarded. Pursuant to this policy, between January 29, 2019 and June 21st, 2019, CPD issued a number of official public statements, press releases, regarding the status and progress of the Smollett investigation and the case's disposition. Only authorized CPD spokespersons under the policy are permitted to issue those official public police statements. Additionally, authorized personnel frequently responded to specific media inquiries, which was also proper under CPD policy. The OSP determined that no wrongdoing was committed in issuing these official public statements because each was made pursuant to published CPD policies by authorized CPD personnel. Okay, so they follow policies and procedures, and it was authorized by the CPD personnel. Okay, conclusion number 2, the OSP did not conclude, oh, my mistake. The OSP did conclude that there were media reports that contained unauthorized leaks of police investigative information by CPD personnel that were in violation of CPD's written policies. However, for reasons set forth below, the OSP was unable to identify the anonymous alleged CPD sources of such leaks. So in other words, there were leaks, but the OSP was unable to determine who did it because it was anonymous. And they ain't telling. During its investigation, the OSP relied on 3 sources of information to identify alleged leaks that should be investigated. Alleged leaks identified by witnesses the OSP interviewed other than Mr. Smollett. Media leaks alleged by Mr. Smollett in various forums, and 3, media reports referencing law enforcement investigative information attributed to an anonymous CPD source or other law enforcement source. The OSP focused its research on reports from established media outlets. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a CPD. I mean, if you think about it, it could be like when James Comey gave his friend and I believe law professor information to leak. Well, it didn't, it came from someone other than James Comey. He gave it to them just so someone at the CPD could easily give that information to someone other than a CPD employee. So, it's all very interesting. I apologize. Okay, so let's continue. So we talked about the OSP and the 3 different areas. Okay, using this methodology, the OSP identified some examples of improper media leaks by CPD personnel. Thus, the OSP gathered sufficient evidence to conclude that 1 or more anonymous CPD sources leaked investigative information to the media about the Smollett investigation without authorization in violation of CPD policy. However, after a thorough investigation, the OSP was unable to identify the source or sources of these media leaks. Several factors rendered the OSP's task in determining the source of anonymous CPD leaks particularly difficult. First, in order to conclusively determine the identity of the source of a leak, to develop evidence that could be used to prove potential charges beyond a reasonable doubt, the OSP would almost certainly have to prove the identity of the police source by obtaining sworn testimony from news reporters who wrote the articles where the leaked information was published. However, reporters are protected from disclosing their sources under the Illinois Reporters Privilege Statute 735 ILCS 5/8-901 to 8-909. So they're protected. So if it was in fact a CPD who gave it to the news reporter, and then the news reporter put it in, well, who's the leaker? I mean, the CPD, I guess the person could be considered a leaker, but ultimately, and this is hypothetically, of course, if it landed in a news reporter's lap, then they're also leaking it. So I don't know, it's all very interesting, but I guess they're both leaking, right? All right, second, some of the leaks the OSP identified were included in CPD reports widely disseminated across CPD divisions under standard CPD procedure, including the original incident report that hundreds of CPD personnel had access to. Third, many of the leaks the OSP identified in media reports were not necessarily attributed to CPD sources, but to law enforcement sources, which could encompass sources from other law enforcement offices, such as the CCSAO or the FBI or any other place, really, right? Any law enforcement, I mean, it could be CIA. I mean, it's just, the possibilities, sheriff's offices, the possibilities are endless of where it could have come from. Somebody could have walked outside and dropped it on the floor or on the ground, and somebody picked up the information and they leaked it. So the possibilities are endless, and they weren't able to drill down enough to find out who in fact leaked it. So okay, fourth, a large core investigative team of more than 20 CPD personnel assisted with the Smollett investigation and had access to the confidential investigative files. So all of this is very true. And it would just take a lot of manpower and a lot of hours, and hours in manpower equals money. And it's just not necessary. In my opinion, what needs to happen is Kim Foxx does not need to continue to be overseeing the CC SAO. I mean, she has destroyed her reputation via the Smollett case. Okay, so fifth, information about the investigation was necessarily shared with individuals and organizations beyond the core investigative team, including State's Attorney Fox and other members of the CCSAO, the FBI, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, Mr. Smollett and his representatives, and various witnesses connected to the investigation. It's just endless possibilities. The OSP notes that pursuant to Judge Tuman's all-encompassing directive to determine whether an office engaged wrongdoing, the OSP also investigated whether CPD took proper steps in response to learning of leaks of law enforcement investigative information concerning the Smollett investigation to the media. The OSP developed evidence that showed CPD took several responsible and substantive actions in response to alleged leaks and attempted to identify the sources of any potential leaks. Therefore, the OSP determined that no wrongdoing was committed by the CPD or any CPD employee in the department's response to leaks of law enforcement sensitive information about the Smollett investigation. And I think that's a fair determination based on what we just read and what my commentary on all of that. Yeah. All right, we're going to leave it there. And we just have a little bit more to go. So there'll be one more part 6. And that'll be it for this. But I found this very, very interesting, insightful. All right, so thanks for stopping by the Daily Facts. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe if you feel so inclined to do so. And we'll talk again soon. Bye.